Hey everybody, welcome to the Happy Harvest Homestead. Today I'm going to fill you in on everything I've done to prepare our rabbitry and our rabbits for summer. As the month of June is just beginning and the weather is warming up even more, the rabbit breeding season is coming to a close. Acrobat just gave birth this morning to what will probably be the last litter of this breeding season. And as we transition from producing lots of babies to no more new births and focusing on growing the babies we already have up to butcher weight, I have made quite a few adjustments. The first thing I did, which was also the hardest thing, was taking an inventory of the breeders we had, judging how good of rabbits they were, and who to keep and who to butcher. Acrobat, Jezalea, and Edelweiss have all been great does this year, while the entire rabbitry started with a rocky beginning to the breeding season. These three does ended strong with lots of healthy surviving litters that are now getting closer and closer to being old enough to butcher. They are healthy rabbits who are doing good on the natural diet we are feeding. They are good moms. They are nursing their babies well. They're having good litter sizes. I have nothing to complain about with any of them. So they have all stayed, those three. But the other two breeding does I had, Zuzu and Izzy, did not do so well. Zuzu is a very small rabbit with a very poor litter track record. She only gave us 1 litter last year and only 2 litters this year. She herself is very small, which is making her kits very small. And because I'm trying to breed for big frames with lots of meat on them, her size definitely is not in her favor. And while it's not entirely her fault, she did get attacked by our buck, who, before then, was an amazing, sweet, loving, and kind boy. So something was off about her that made him dislike her. So counting all of that up together and comparing her with our good does really made me see that she was no longer a good fit for our rabbitry. So she is butchered, along with Izzy, who I already talked about why I butchered her as an example for a different topic I was talking about in a different video, but I'll cover that again. Even though she has amazing potential, she didn't fulfill any of that potential. The one litter she had a couple years ago was a complete failure, and she's had 0 babies since then, and I've waited for over a year for her to finally manifest her potential and have these really awesome high-quality babies, but she hasn't. And while her cute antics of building nests every once in a while was kind of fun to watch, and she did end up nursing some 5-week-old babies in the colony, like her sister's babies and other rabbits' babies who were supposed to be weaned. So somehow she was producing milk even though she wasn't giving birth to her own babies, but she wasn't fulfilling the one purpose we had her here to do. And she was causing her fair share of problems, taking up nest box areas by building her weird nests. And we did have that one scare where thankfully she didn't do this, but she could have completely messed up her sister Leah's litter. So not only was she not benefiting us at all, she also was potentially a detriment to our colony, so I butchered her as well. And then the last rabbit I culled from our colony was adorable, wonderful Sterling, our breeding buck. Honestly, he wasn't ever meant to be our main breeding buck. He was just the backup who stepped into his main role when we had to butcher our main breeding buck, Onyx, and he's just been filling that role ever since, kind of like an understudy taking over the main role in a play. And for a while, I have been raising up his replacement, Henry, and he's finally old enough and big enough, and his balls have dropped, and he is now like a mature adult buck. So I was planning on making him our main breeder and then having Sterling be our backup again. But then Sterling decided to randomly attack an innocent doe for no reason, and that just put a seed of fear in my heart, because even though he had been up to that point and was since that point angelic to all adult rabbits and baby rabbits and was a wonderful buck and treated everybody with respect and love, and he wasn't overbreeding the does or he wasn't being mean to the kits at all, I was just so scared that one day he'd lash out again and cause a whole bunch of headache and trauma and stress to me and very much endanger another rabbit's life and make them suffer for a long time. Thankfully, Zuzu healed from her injury enough, just in time for me to butcher her. I kind of feel bad that I didn't let her enjoy her fully healed body for longer. but these are working livestock and not pets, so I'm ignoring my mushy heart and focusing on my goals like I keep telling myself to do. So now Zuzu, Izzy, and Sterling are all up in rabbit heaven, and I am left to finish up the final summer arrangements with housing and all of that. Right now, my final colony housing plan is in a bit of a limbo because we have a bunch of young litters in the colony, and no buck because I butchered him. So I'm glad it's summertime and that the breeding would have stopped soon anyways, because if it was like spring or winter or something, not having a buck in the colony for many weeks until the babies age out of the colony would have been detrimental to our breeding program. But I'm okay stopping the breeding a little bit early and letting the babies grow up and age out before adding the stress of a new rabbit, especially a very unexperienced new buck who's never been in a colony before, has never bred any does before, has never lived with kits before. Most likely everything will be fine, but he probably will take a while to adjust to such a drastic new setup. And I don't want any nursing moms or little babies in there being stressed out when Henry gets put in. And in a few weeks, when he is introduced, it'll probably be too hot for him to breed anybody. At the moment, we kind of have some cooler, cloudy weather, so there is a small chance of breeding, especially because Acrobat just gave birth, so she's ready to rebreed again. But having babies in the heat of summer, as you know if you've watched previous years, is very tricky and dangerous. I have lost so many litters to heat. Either the mom will add too much fur to the nest and they'll overheat that way, or there's a large litter in a smaller nest box and they can't spread out enough, or there's not enough airflow, or the setup is perfect as it can be and it just gets too hot for these poor babies. All rabbits have a hard time dealing with heat, but little babies suffer especially bad. In fact, when I'm considering this subject, I don't think I've had one summer litter survive in years. I mean, hopefully I'm wrong and at least one survived, but I can't think of a success story to tell you. Oh, and not only are the kids in danger from the heat, but also adult does giving birth are in danger of heat stroke because the birthing process is stressful on their bodies, and I've had a couple does die while giving birth in the heat of the day. So giving my does a couple weeks of break from a buck as summer begins is not a bad idea. But my final summer plans are in about a month, when all the babies are old enough to be weaned from the colony, and when, hopefully by that point, some of our oldest grow-outs have reached 5 pounds, which is butcher weight, and I finally fill my freezers with their delicious meat, and make room for the next batch of babies to take their place in the tractors. Number 1, we'll have a lot of yummy meat. Number 2, we won't be so crammed for space like we are now. And number 3, we will have a beautiful colony full of does and a buck on the summer break. We'll have the 3 main mamas, Edelweiss, Jezzalia, and Acrobat, and then we'll have a sampling of each of their daughters to raise up, who in the fall will be old enough to breed, and we can see if those does paired with Sterling produced good offspring or not, and hopefully we'll get a whole bunch more awesome breeders from them as well. You guys know I've already chosen my 3 does from Acrobat. They are Maria, Dina, Lillian, and Antoinette. And then I think I have decided on 2 of Leah's daughters. I'm thinking of calling them Lavender and Periwinkle. And then Edelweiss had 2 beautiful girls who I am still going to grow out a little bit and weigh them and see how fast they're growing, to see if they're going to make good breeding stock. But they possibly will be kept. And then I really can't help myself. Leah had 1 more daughter who is 1 litter younger than her blue sisters, Lavender and Periwinkle. These kits were all a mishmash of Leah and Edelweiss's babies that Leah adopted, so they've been raised as sisters, and she's one of 2 babies who got insanely fat and full, and therefore has a very big, fast-growing body structure that maybe I just want to experiment with and keep, and her coloring's really pretty. I promise I'm not just keeping her because I like her and she's pretty. She has good genetics too. I am not breaking my goals, I promise you that. But we'll just have to wait and see. I'm going to weigh them and see how they grow. They may end up not being kept, but I really would like to get a sampling of all 3 does and see how they raise up. Of course, these are all Sterling's babies and not Henry's babies, so they won't be line breeding with him or anything like that. but that also means they could inherit their dad's smaller frame, whereas the whole reason I wanted Henry is because he is such a big, fast-growing rabbit, so I may end up keeping some does from our future fall and winter litters, like next breeding season, who are fathered by Henry. I don't know. I guess it's good that I'm weighing everybody regularly, well, semi-regularly, and keeping track of how fast they grow, because then I can compare everybody's weights to each other and keep the biggest and fastest growing babies instead of having to guess and remember. Even though weighing them all the time is a ton of work and they wiggle and shed all over you and scratch you, in the end it just might be worth it. So those are my summer plans and what I have done and will do to meet those plans. I am honestly looking forward to a break from crazy rabbit breeding. It is so nice to have so many litters, but at the same time, it is a lot of work. I'm so glad this breeding season year was so successful, and I'm really looking forward to, hopefully, another successful season, which will begin this coming fall. Thanks for watching!